Okay. Ready? Okay, thank you. We'll begin the Planning Committee meeting of Akron City Council. Roll call, please. Ms. Biviano?
Fusco?
Aye.
Kamer? Aye. Connor? Baylor?
Aye.
Mosley?
Aye.
All members are present except for Connor.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to accept a motion that we accept the minutes of the last meeting.
So moved.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those that are against it? Very good, the ayes have it. We do have, I believe, 2 items that are up for public hearing this afternoon, and the process will be that we will swear in those individuals that wish to speak before the committee. Previous to that, though, what we will do, though, is receive a report from the planning department on the conditional use request. We'll then swear in those individuals, and then we'll ask if there's anyone here wishing to speak in favor of the specific conditional use request, or if there's anyone wishing to speak against that specific conditional use request. Afterwards, what we'll do, we will then have questions from the committee, entertain questions from the committee, and then entertain questions from all of council. Then this evening, we'll basically repeat that process. And the only difference is this evening, the committee will then make a recommendation to all of council, either in favor, against, or to table an item, take time. So those are the procedures that we'll be following this afternoon and today. And of course, we invite everyone back this evening, and they also could be included if you via the Zoom, I believe, right, Ms. Biviano? So with that, the first item that's up for a public hearing today is the ordinance authorizing a conditional use to establish an event center banquet hall at 133 Merriman Road. Mr. Antonucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Temple Hall Revival Group, LLC is requesting approval to establish the retail use of a performing arts facility and event space within the single-family and apartment house use districts. The Temple Hall Revival Group has purchased the site, currently referring to it as the Highland Universal Gathering Spot. They have proposed the use of the center for a performance hall and rehearsal spaces in addition to other proposed educational performing art opportunities. It's also proposed that the adjacent lower level will be used as event space to accommodate weddings, fundraisers, or other celebrations. The site's been vacant since June 2018. There are no plans to change the exterior of the building with the exception of additional exterior lighting and new signage. An area to the north of the building will be landscaped to create a tiered garden. This space could accommodate additional future parking if the need arises. The purchase of the site includes the parking lot situated at the northwest corner of Merriman Road and Marshall Street, which is across the street from the building. The lot provides parking for 60 vehicles in addition to the 20 spaces that are provided directly north of the building. Solid fencing or landscaping will screen parking and open space areas from abutting residences. City Council approved the designation of this property as a local historic landmark on September 12th of this year. This specialized facility will complement the Highland Square neighborhood and many other cultural institutions and venues within the region. The reuse of the site will allow for the reutilization of a vacated building to provide opportunities for students of the arts and celebrations for people within the greater Akron area. It's located along a major corridor within the Highland Square neighborhood. It will allow sufficient walkable access to the site and will accommodate people from within as well as outside the neighborhood. Office of Integrated Development, Planning Staff, and Planning Commission recommend approval, subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Antonucci. At this time, we'll ask a representative of our law department, please swear in those individuals that wish to testify before the committee in reference to the conditional use request.
All those wishing to address this body, would you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say I do. I do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. At this time, I'd like to request if there's anyone, we'll open up the public hearing. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of the conditional use request? If you could please provide for us your name and address. Welcome you to the podium.
Good morning. morning, I'm Anthony Tropy, and you can find me at 133 Merriman, or 43 East Market, or 1 South Main, or 1330 San Ron. If you're looking for me, you'll find me there. Are you ready?
Always.
Okay, good. Well, we're all excited about old buildings. We've been working on them for a long time now, and I've actually never met an old building that I didn't like. But this one I particularly love. And it's just appropriate that right over the front door, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. So we're all excited about this previous temple that had been, for generations, responsible for bringing light and love to the community. It is a great place. It's a gathering spot. It's a place for assembly. So we're not really changing the use, we're just changing the users. And we're making it more inclusive to include more people in the community. So it's kind of morphing from a religious place to just a place of celebration, a place to celebrate the arts. And we're finding that the arts is really going to be one of the main, not only economic development tools, but one of the main tools to help us bring a sense of healing, to help us overcome some political and racial strife that desperately needs to be pursued by our leaders. So I'm helping take a leadership role with this old building. We're in the process now of taking the old temple and getting it listed on the National Registry of Historic Places. So you're right, we're not going to be doing much work to the exterior. We will be fine-tuning the art glass windows and some of the storm windows on that. There'll be some opportunity for some interesting creative signing to let people know that this place is a gathering spot for artists and art lovers. So we're calling it appropriately the Highland Universal Gathering Spot. And if anyone is up on their acronyms today, Highland Universal Gathering. Hug, right? Come on, it's a place that you can embrace. And it's going to embrace back its our participants. And then we get a little fancy too now as we start to go international, because the idea, all ages, all races, all flavors from around the world can gather together to celebrate these arts. So we're going to put the umlaut over the U, and it forms an interesting happy face emoji, right? But it also goes from the sound to ew, so it becomes a huge hug. It's really a big deal here to support the arts and to support those that want to come and learn and love and grow in this type of wellness atmosphere. I really believe that the energy of that place is just going to transpose itself for multiple generations as it opens the door for all types of performing, visual, culinary arts even. There's a great kitchen down there that had served the old banquet facility that had been there. It's a grand place that can really celebrate and provide the food and teach people how to eat and serve food smartly. Upstairs, what we've done is we've teamed up with the Blue Jazz Masterclass. It's been quite successful in that we've opened the door as a 501c3 that is underwritten by the Knight Foundation, the GAR, and the Akron Community Foundation, and all these groups have seen the value of taking the masters, the pros in the art world that have created the path that has laid out the trajectory. How do you get from passionate pursuit of the arts to a model of sustainability so that the artists can actually become entrepreneurs? That's what we're interested in teaching people here at the Highland Universal Gathering Spot. So I brought in Bobby Salvaggio as the executive director for our new 501c3 that's actually just kind of growing out of Main and Market, growing to what I'm affectionately calling the Orange Zone. Aren't you glad to be in Highland Square at the Highland Universal Gathering Spot? It's kind of a pitch that I'm working on, the voice intonations, because you'll hear it on the radio here soon. I've always been told I got a great face for radio, but it's my voice I want to hear on NPR. But the story really is unfolding in the exciting places that Bobby is a master educator, Bobby Salvaggio. He runs the jazz program over at Kent State, and he has a passion for helping students of all ages get from the point of their passionate interests to a point where it's been solidified and perfected, and now it's ready to go on stage. So this is a creative arts collaborative center. We're calling it C3, Creative Collaborative Center. C, superscript, not C3, but superscript, because it's transcending in the current way of thinking and taking things up a notch. Where we had been right below you in the blue zone, now we're going to be taking it, elevating it, and embracing this great place. I really feel like this is a great project at this time, and it's a great time at this place to really celebrate the arts, and that's really why I'm here to ask you for your ongoing, continuing support, and happy face emoji over the U. Questions, comments, concerns?
Thank you, sir. Thank you. We'll continue the public hearing, and then we'll open up for questions, and we may have some at that time.
So that would have been a good rehearsal for this evening?
I think it is. You're always spot on, though, so. Thank you, Mr. Sophie. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Is there anyone here else who would like to speak before the committee? Anyone in favor, against, anyone? Okay, very good. We'll close the public hearing portion, and we'll open up to any committee members that may have questions or comments. At this time, any committee members, any council members that may have questions? Nancy Holland, Ward 1 representative. And then
Thank you,
Mallett,
Mr.
of
Chairman,
course.
and thank you, Mr. Tropey. I think I can safely speak for Ward 1 and beyond when I say that this will be a wonderful addition to our community. And I think I need a slightly longer mic. I hate to talk without looking at someone. This is an exciting move, and I think you're absolutely on target when you say that what Akron and the Highland Square area needs is one big hug. So thank you for all you're doing. I think one of the things that's important to mention on the record is that in the earlier stages of this process, we did have conversations involving close-by neighbors, and there is a condition that is included in the conditional use permit, which I think it speaks for itself, but in the interest of just recognizing these citizens who did raise their hands and did take the time to come to an early hearing, wanted to mention that that was recognized and incorporated in this final order. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next. I know you'll be a good neighbor, and happy holidays.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Mr. Mallett?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Tropey, for starting us off here at committee meetings today on a very positive note. Really excited about this project. I had an opportunity to look at the space a few weeks ago, and really cool to see it already starting to transform. And I took a picture of the old sanctuary and posted it, and so many people commented with memories about their bar mitzvahs, their bat mitzvahs, or different things. I know this building has a really important place in Akron's Jewish history, and also the space was really important to our late colleague, Councilman Swirsky. I know when there was discussion about the symphony coming in, it was one of the things he was really excited about, and so really excited to see there was just the Gay Community Endowment Fund event that was there, and to see the space alive and being used, I think, it's such a benefit. So thank you, and really excited to see this progress.
Thank you, James.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? Not hearing any. We'll invite you back this evening, of course, at 7 o'clock. The committee will make a recommendation.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item up for public hearing is ordinance authorizing conditional use to construct a commercial facility and grounds building at 389 Edgewood. Mr. Antonucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Akron Zoological Park is proposing to construct a new facilities and grounds maintenance building. The new structure would measure 50 feet in width and 167 feet 4 inches in length. The exterior would be clad with metal vertical siding, and the metal roof system would be a 412 pitched hipped style. The south portion of the structure would house offices, lockers, and a meeting room for the facility's staff. The roof would peak at 22 feet in height. The north portion of the structure would be a maintenance and fabrication area with a mezzanine level at the rear, and that roof would peak at 28 feet. Parking for 11 golf carts would be provided along the south side of the building. One accessible space would be at the front entrance, and 34 spaces for vehicles and larger equipment would be in 2 rows to the north of the structure. Ingress and egress would be from both the north and south ends of the parking lot. The existing barn structure would be removed from the property to provide the area for the parking lot, and an existing hoop house would be relocated just to the north of the parking area. A stormwater detention pond would be provided on the north portion of the property. Additional fencing matching the existing would be provided to enclose the perimeter of the property. Landscaping consisting of a row of various shrubs would screen the parking area from the street. Petitioner states the new facilities and grounds facility will support the operations of the Akron Zoo. By relocating these supporting departments outside the fenced footprint of the park, additional acreage for future expansion of animal buildings within the zoo property can be created. The building would be well insulated and all waste would be stored inside. Objectives of the Land Use and Development Guide Plan include promoting good design standards for buildings and parking lots. Providing the landscaping or fencing sufficiently screens the use from nearby residences. The proposed development should have little impact on the surrounding area. Office of Integrated Development, Planning Staff, and Planning Commission recommend approval, subject to conditions.
Very good, thank you. I'll ask if there's anyone here wishing to speak before the committee. Please be sworn in from a representative of our law department.
Okay, if there's anybody here wishing to, okay, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say I do. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now open up the public hearing portion and ask if there's anyone here wishing to speak in favor of the conditional use request at 389 Edgewood Avenue. Please come forward and provide for us your name and address. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Susan Allen with TC Architects, 430 Grant Street, and we've been working with the zoo for quite some time, and it's a much-needed expansion for them, and I'm really here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Doug Piekash, 500 Edgewood Avenue, Akron, Ohio, the address of the Akron Zoo. One of the things that I just wanted to state up front, I think most of you know that the zoo consistently maintains a field of vision to ensure that the work that we do on site is the best possible work we can do for the animals and for this community. In 2021, we successfully achieved a milestone in zoo history when we became one of 3 facilities over a half-century to receive a perfect accreditation score. When we look at these accreditation standards, which rise every year, we have to make changes on site, and the change that's in front of you today is one of those things that helps us secure future accreditations. So thank you for your consideration. Happy to answer any questions when you get to it.
Thanks for all your good work.
My pleasure.
Hi, good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Just a quick note, my name is Vince Adamus. I'm with East Akron Neighborhood Development Corp. And under the general heading of It Takes a Village, which we're probably all familiar with, we are constructing our I Promise housing, 50-unit apartment building, essentially across the street from the school. And I just want to note the zoo has been a great partner, allowing us to use some of their property for our off-site parking for the construction workers, so we can keep the activity off the street and off of the neighbors' properties and out of their sight and mind as much as possible. They've been a great partner, so we support them on this project. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your good work as well. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor or against this proposal on Edgewood? Anyone? Very good. And of course, we'll invite you back this evening for the second public hearing, and we'll make a recommendation afterwards. Questions from any committee members? Any council members? I see President Somerville's hand up.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to let all of City Council know, and also a thanks to Doug and his team. A couple of months ago, we did hold a community meeting with the residents around the zoo, so they had an opportunity to hear about this project some months ago and be able to give their feedback, and we were able to address any concerns that they had at that time. So just wanted to let you know that the community was engaged months ago around this project.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? Very good. Hearing none, of course, again, invite you back this evening. Thank you for all your good work. Certainly appreciate it. Remember whenever we first applied for that accreditation, and it was a very big deal back then, as it is today, and it's truly a gem here in our town. So thank you for all your good work, and we'll make a recommendation this evening. Thank you again. With that, we'll move on to the balance of the agenda. I'm going to recommend time on 3 through and including 9. Short of any questions or comments, is there anything? Mr. Volleman?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was talking to Mr. Messner. We have three, I think, TIF pieces that are
Yes, we
7
do.
through 9 that have been, here, we would need those passed before at this
Okay,
meeting.
very good. 7, 8, and 9 are the ones. Mr. Messner, can we have a brief description of these for the committee so that we can make sure that this is 7, right? So we'll take time on 3 through and including 6. Mr. Messner?
I'm just refamiliarizing myself which one is which. So 7 is for the Goodrich, which is a reuse of the old Goodrich facility as apartments.
Right. And this is the TIF piece, right?
That is correct.
It was introduced last week?
I,
Oh, no, it's actually the 21st of November.
that's correct.
Very good. Is there any questions or comments on this? Favorable recommendation for suspension of the rules? I'll make the recommendation. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Against? Very good. Item number 8, this is the Firestone Business Park Cole Avenue extension. TIF.
Yes, this is the new spec building put up by Pleasant Valley Corporation. It's about 100,000 square feet to attract manufacturers. And I believe they either have leased or are soon to lease the space out.
Oh, very good, very good. Questions or comments? Not hearing none. Is there a recommendation for suspension of the rules?
So moved.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Against? Very good, the ayes have it. Item number 9.
And just a correction, item 7 actually is not the Goodrich, that's for Pritt, the Carlson building, and item 9 is actually for the Goodrich.
For the Goodrich, right.
Those two development boundaries are fairly close to each other, so my apologies.
Very good. Any questions or comments? All these were introduced on November 21st. Is there a recommendation for suspension of the rules, or just a favorable recommendation? I'll make it. Is there a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Those against? Very good. The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item is item number 10. This is reference the development agreement and sale for White Pond Reserve LLC. Of course, this has been on the agenda since the 14th. And I know last week we got an updated agreement.
Yes.
And I'd like, Mr. Volman, if you could kind of go through that.
Yeah,
for us,
thank you.
Some of those changes.
Yes, thank you. We circulated on Friday, we received an updated development agreement and plans from the developer. Again, we can entertain any questions on these, but we requested and the developer submitted revised plans based on the changes he's agreed to make over the last few weeks. The initial plans submitted over the summer showed development over a portion of isolated wetlands that showed tennis courts, a clubhouse, 60,000 square feet of retail. In the normal course of development, we would not have required the developer to make these revisions until it was time to obtain a building permit. But he was willing to pay for these changes now without having any further commitment from this council, and I do appreciate his willing to do that. But if you have any questions about those changes, we are here.
Okay, very good, thank you. And as mentioned, this has been on the agenda for a while. We were asked to take a pause, take some time in order to facilitate a public meeting on that, which was conducted. They had provided us with a nice report in terms of the concerns that have been levied against, in reference to the development itself. And with that, I know that there's some anxiousness in terms of voting on this, and I also understand that there's some that wish to take more time. But I believe at this juncture, it would be prudent for us to go ahead and take a vote on this proposal. With that, is there any questions or comments from any committee members? Ms. Mosley?
Thank you. I was just wondering, I know we're due to take a vote on it, but I do recall us getting several emails over the weekend for people requesting an opportunity to speak. So are we not letting people speak before we vote on this?
Thank you for asking that question. Yes, we have, and the way council conducts its business and has for many, many years is that the business meeting, the business of Akron City Council typically occurs during these committee meetings. And in between is whenever we often have, short of conditional use requests. But when we've had a lot of testimony from just after council meetings from individuals. I can't remember exactly how many, 60 or so comments, I believe, 50 comments. We had that accommodated for the, and it was useful, the public meeting. I know we've received over 130, probably after today, 140 emails, many of which was, about half or so, what I counted was from the same individuals. It's understandable, but I believe that we have received a lot of concerns. We have received specific concerns. We have also responded to many of those concerns via a FAQ that was facilitated by the administration, answering a lot of those concerns. We have made many, many adjustments along the way in terms of listening to those particular concerns. And I believe, we have, the concerns that were brought forward about trees, those adjustments have been made. We've done that. Transferring wetlands, the city not transferring wetland permits, we've accommodated for that. Acceptable traffic conditions, those will be before the actual closing, correct?
Correct.
That will be done, which is a little different than typically what we do in the past. Usually that's done at a later juncture, right before the permits are granted, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Not building on the wetlands, again, that's got to go through zoning, and that has been part of the agreement?
The developer has agreed not to build on any of the wetlands, and so we've made changes to the plans to show that.
Yes, we've reduced the amount of retail from the original 60,000 square feet to a 30,000 and possibly even less. So that's been done as well. We have provided every record that I can think of that has been asked, kind of circumventing the whole records request piece, just to make sure that those answers, those questions are answered. And attended the public meeting, which was beneficial, I believe, and we've heard from the community and have made adjustments along the way. And so with that, but I certainly appreciate what you're saying, but again, this council, our business is conducted during these during these council committee meetings. And so, and we also have, in this day and age especially, with social media, what it is, ward council members have meeting after meeting, in the community. Oftentimes we heard from, one of our colleagues, whenever it first landed on their desk, they go out and they meet with a developer and they have these discussions with the community oftentimes, and that's the way. So I certainly appreciate the input from folks that wish to speak before the committee. Again, we'll have an opportunity this evening. Email is available, and many of us, even after these meetings, are available for the public. So that's where any other, yes?
Still more questions. So I have questions now because Emily did send me some information about the gas and oil deed. As I read through there, it didn't seem as if there were any restrictions in there. Did I miss something within that contract?
I think, Councilwoman Mosley, your questions were specifically about capping oil and gas wells.
Right.
And what I had provided were the leases, and those leases have specific provisions related to, once economic production has ceased, that those wells will be plugged, so that the leaseholder, right, has the right to enforce that plugging.
Okay,
So-
so
so I
no
think that is
restrictions
a
right
res-
now? So there's no
Well, I think that is a
restrictions?
restriction.
Okay. Another question, this came from a resident that emailed me, and they wanted to know, did the current developer, Triton Properties, have any experience building on or near wetlands?
I do not have the answer to that question, however, I can, not personally seeing the relevance, but I can try to find out.
Do we know who the general contractor will be?
Nope.
No. I can comment, though, that the Environmental Design Group, who is the design engineer, they have had experience designing biowetlands over peat with roadways as well as structures. So they're very versed in doing this.
So you mentioned that Triton agreed to they're not building near the wetlands. Is that why the plan changed and the shape changed because of that?
That's why the plans change, yes. That was to show, the previous plan had shown some isolated wetlands that had development on it. We asked him to, since he agreed not to do it, to change those plans.
Okay, last question was, is there any health impact statements as far as living near railways, highways, gas and oil wells, or toxic soils like the brownfields? Is there any kind of health impact statements in that regard? Because I know it's an active rail.
So if you're asking if the city has required those things, we have not. And I don't know of an instance where we have required such things. There are many studies out there regarding proximity to highways, and I know of some related to proximity to rail. And the city does not review those kinds of plans, nor does it have the authority to.
That also goes back to the risk mitigation plan that they have to complete. I mean, if you look at all the apartments that are, and all the offices that are in the old B.F. Goodrich facility and what went on there, all those developers had to complete something like this as well as clean up those sites. So it's all regulated by the EPA, it's all regulated by OSHA. Everything has to be approved so that the welfare for the workers as well as the residents is taken into account, and everyone will be safe.
All right, thank you.
Solid.
Thank you, Chairman Fusco. I have 2 points I'd like to make. First, I absolutely respect and appreciate that the chair has exercised his discretion in terms of the residents' request to speak. I do understand that fairness also embraces the idea of efficiency and processing of all the business that comes before this very busy committee. That said, I have been involved in at least one planning commission matter where public interest and desire to comment was so significant that a creative solution to that involved the chair of that commission permitting one representative of a rather large group to actually bring forth comments on behalf of that significant group, which seemed to be sort of a Solomonic way of addressing both concerns for time and efficiency, but also the very real need and desire for the citizens to respond, and I think specifically to the latest changes to the development agreement, which brings me to my second point, which is I wonder if Mr. Volman would be so kind, particularly for the benefit of our guests today who may not have had a chance to review the changes, to walk the public through the changes that were most recently made.
Certainly.
So that everybody's on the same page.
Certainly.
Thank you.
As I stated before, we received plans maybe about 6 months, the initial plans maybe about 6 months ago. We had those plans. That's what had been circulated, to council. Those are preliminary plans. Those are always preliminary plans. If you review a development agreement, there is a procedure for determining the final plans and then even for them requesting changes to those plans. But normally that is something that occurs, if you read the development agreement, it's by its nature something that occurs after you have the development agreement. It sets up the rules and regulations. It's not something that normally occurs prior to. So as you heard last week, and as we mentioned for the last couple of weeks, the developer has said he would not build on the wetlands. He had shown in the preliminary plans, not on the bigger ponds themselves, but on a couple of what was labeled as isolated wetlands that's regulated by the state. He had shown building on those. So we said, well, you know, you said you were not going to do that. It would help if we showed that you were not going to do that. So that is really the main change to the plans, was moving those off of those sites, and on that initial plan it was set as impacted wetlands. What that resulted in was moving over some of the, as the plans that are shown now, moving some of the residential over to where the commercial was. He is still hoping that he can build the commercial. He would still be limited to the 30,000 that he agreed to prior, in a prior change of the development agreement. But, you know, those, if it makes more sense to have residential on that piece where the new townhomes are being shown, then he would make that change. If not, he would build what he's showing now. And that's the change. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Malik?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, everyone who's with us today, as well as the members of the public who are with us. Well, I guess there was a point that Ms. Holland made, that would it be possible for one of them? Okay. You know what I was going to ask.
I think so.
Okay. So I had a couple questions, Mr. Volman, relating to the changes. So previously, there was about 5 buildings with 60,000 square feet of retail and apartments above that.
Sounds right.
Last week, there was a discussion that they would be limited to 30,000 square feet of rental, and that there would still be apartments, but first floor that space may not be retail. The layout that was provided on Friday appears to not show any of those buildings.
Correct.
And so their current plan, as it currently is to not build any retail and not build any apartments. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. I guess that seems like a fairly significant change. What is animating that? It sounds like some of what's animating it is concerns from the administration about the size of retail. You said there was an agreement that they would be capped at 30,000.
Correct.
But what is their rationale, if we know it, of why they're going down to 0?
I think that they want the ability. I mean, I don't think that they're necessarily going down to 0.
Okay.
However, based on the unusual request that they alter their plans at this time, and the request that they not show residential on the isolated wetlands, they have redone the plans and that is what makes the most sense to them at this point. If you do see in the development agreement, however, the actual change language, they do reserve the right to build up to 30,000 square feet in commercial.
Okay.
And I also, yeah, I mean, that's what the changes were.
Okay, no, I appreciate that, and I'm really seeking to understand that. So one point, we just discussed this, but just for the benefit of everyone, the development agreement does contain a commitment regarding jobs that envisions commercial.
Right.
And again, at this present point, there is no commercial.
Yeah, I think it was an estimate, and the estimate that the commercial tenants will have 3 to 5. But I mean, if there's no commercial tenants, then that won't be. But if they have commercial tenants, they're estimating that it'll be 3 to 5. Okay.
There's been some discussion about mineral rights, and thank you for providing that information. One point that several folks raised with me was that we're splitting the royalties. Do we have a sense of what the annual amount we're generating from the mineral rights now?
We do, and as the people on my team that are smarter than me pointed out, a lot of it depends on what the oil prices are at any given time. So over the last 5 years, it's been a low of just under $7,000, and that was in 2020, which I don't think would surprise most people due to the price of oil. during the pandemic. And the high was in 2018, which was about 15,000.
Okay.
And the
Relative.
rest of the numbers are, so between, we would keep between 7,800, 3,500, based on those numbers. But, I think overall, and maybe Emily probably knows a bit more, but those would continue to go down as production decreases and,
Sure. Yeah, that answers the question. I just wanted to get a general ballpark of, and that seems like a pretty modest sum. The traffic, so the traffic analysis that AMETS did was built on the assumptions of retail and apartments. Do we have any sense of whether that might change given the changes that were made this past week?
Well, I think they might change based on potential changes, but I don't, again, the overall development footprint will be smaller, so.
Okay.
But no, we have not asked AMETS to redo that. But again, the traffic engineering approval is a condition of closing.
Okay. And then on the environmental piece, my colleague also mentioned this, but my understanding from the development agreement, there have been concerns raised about the soil. So there will be an inspection period of 30 days prior to closing where the developer will be able to conduct tests, including potentially soil tests, and could back out of the closing if they determine that, say, the contamination and remediation, costs are so significant that it would be difficult to proceed.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, well, I don't have anything further in terms of questions. I think my position on this has been made fairly clear, and I'll speak my piece tonight, but I do want to acknowledge that I think there are hundreds of residents who have shared concerns and who feel that their concerns have not been adequately addressed. I appreciate the amount of information that has been shared. I will say that often it feels like the information is being shared as a justification for the decision, not necessarily as engaging fully in any kind of reconsideration of whether this is the best idea. And I think there are a number of concerns that feel unaddressed, particularly around the existing traffic problems around 77 and Mall and White Pond, which AMETS's own reports show as congested. In addition, the commitments made around trees might allow for the planting of, several dozen trees, but we're talking about, 20, 30 acres of trees that are going to be taken down. It's a much, much larger sum. Even as early as this summer, one of the things I asked the developers was to commit to contributing to the City Street Tree Fund in an amount that was equivalent to the amount of trees being taken down. And there are additional concerns. The contamination of the soil, to me, is a significant concern. We are currently the stewards of this land. So I think there are many reasons why we should not rush this, but I understand that there are differing opinions here.
Thank you. Ms. Mobian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I certainly appreciate the opportunity to address the committee. And I will repeat what I said several meetings ago, that whenever citizens take the time to come to committee meetings, we should provide the opportunity for them to engage in dialogue with us. No matter what position they take, whether it's in favor or against, we need to provide that opportunity. Here's my concern. My concern is that these are taxpayers in which these projects are going to be with us forever, and we're not taking the limited time to allow them to address their concerns, and there is no explanation and no reason for us to deny them. The simple question that Councilwoman Mosley asked was, will the citizens be allowed to address the committee? And you proceeded, Mr. Chair, to recap everything that everybody is aware of. The question is, why can't citizens, when they take the time to come to our committee meetings, why aren't they allowed to speak? It doesn't matter how many times, because every time I hear about this project myself, and I've heard of it a gazillion times now, there are moving parts and changes all the time. And if citizens have questions about something that's going to be in their neighborhood forever, at least we should be able to take the time to listen to their concerns, whether we like them or not. Listen is part of what our job is, because we're here to represent the citizens. And I'm deeply troubled by this, and we really need to revisit this, because that is why we have these committee meetings, so that there is some engagement, not only from the elected officials, but the citizens that we represent. And I am troubled by that. And I have said repeatedly that when people speak in the evening, and we all know this, it is after the decisions are made, not before. And that is a real concern. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mobian. I'll just say this. Again, Mr. Lombardo.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there. Just a comment, maybe a clarification, Mr. Becker, just in my mind to get this straight. So there could be a potential sale of this land. Then the procedure or the process would be that Triton comes in and has 30 days to, do tests on the soil, and seeing if this land is, if there's an ability to build on this land. I heard what you said, that everything's got to be regulated by the EPA and OSHA, and so everyone will be safe.
Yes.
But that basically is the process, that Triton doesn't know at this point if, the land is suitable to build. Would you say it's their leap of faith?
They have some idea, because they have done some soil borings as far as what the soil types are and what it can sustain. What they will get further into is the environmental reports, which we have provided to everyone. The environmental reports basically state the areas that may have some soil that's contaminated. And what they're going to do is they're going to group these together, and they're going to look at them a little further with a fine-tooth comb and say, what do we need to do here? Is it an engineering control? It is something, whatever it is, that the EPA will be able to approve, and that they can put the road in, put a foundation in.
Okay.
And the other thing that's with these units is there are no basements. They're all slab. So that is a really good engineering control, which separates, residential from anything underneath.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Kamer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to make a few comments and a statement on how I'll be voting. I started off in favor of the project, but as more and more citizens started to come down and raise concerns, and now I have a nice size amount of folks in my ward that are concerned and asking questions, and is asking for more pause. And I know I've had a few conversations with some of my colleagues to see if we can try to, continue to take time. I'm not in favor for making it last until April, like a lot of the residents wanted a couple weeks ago at the community meeting, but I would be in favor of taking a few more weeks to listen to them and to make sure that we're moving forward and doing the right thing, especially when it comes to city-owned property. I would have a different opinion if it was our budget or something to do with our safety force or our employees. But like I said, moving forward, I'll support this to get it out of committee, but I'll probably vote against it this evening because I do feel that a majority of us do want to move forward, but I am opposed to moving forward right now. I would like to take a few more weeks just to make sure, and obviously you can't, make everybody happy and address all the questions and concerns, but, I've had a lot more conversations over the last probably 7 to 10 days with Ward 7 residents. So moving forward, I just wanted to make that statement that, Mr. Chair, if you're calling for a vote today, I'll support it out of committee to bring it to council as a whole, but I'll probably stand in opposition this evening, so thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Malik, then Ms. Holland. Okay, Ms. Holland?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for all the thoughtful comments from the committee and other members of council. This has been a really interesting process, to say the least, and like Councilman Kamer, I initially supported this proposed development. However, I come from a point of view that when we know better, we do better. And of particular interest to me was the FAQ, for which I will always be grateful for the team that diligently, studiously put this together so that we had the information that I think we would have strongly benefited from many, many months ago. Of particular interest to me, as both a mother and a grandmother now, was the information about soil contaminants. We are at a time that we need more housing in Akron. There is no argument there. We are striving, I think, as a team, all branches of Akron government, to be a modern city and to reimagine and reinvent ourselves. And part of that will be by creating new housing, including GASP luxury housing. This is part of the ultimate dream of building a city that is realistic, that is upbeat, and about progress. And yet, again, as a mother and as a grandmother, I am deeply concerned about tenants being exposed to any significant levels of cadmium, arsenic, lead, and whatever else is revealed. But we do have test results now, and I am concerned by that. I think that there's been tremendous good faith effort on the part of the administration and the promoters of this development. However, I really have had to press pause for myself, and certainly in response to the many people who have reached out to me to express similar concerns. We are a representative democracy. We are here doing our jobs the best we can, working with the best and most information we have. For all of these reasons, I would support a modest amount of additional time for maximum clarity, not only on what's happening here, but what a possible ideal development agreement might look like. But if, as seems to be the appetite, the vote is called for tonight, my vote will be no. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Thank you. Again, I appreciate all the input that we received. Obviously, that input that we received moved the needle, moved the whole development. And we here have someone who is willing to spend $55 million improving our city from that aspect of it. They will be required to take out appropriate permits to protect the builders, the residents, those permits are going to need to be taken out. And if they're not going to be approved, then obviously that would change everything, obviously. And so the input from the community, I believe we have done, the administration has done, and many council members we have spoken to the administration and the developer in terms of adjustments we like to see based on that communication from the people, okay? The emails, the 130, 140 emails, read them and came forward with questions and comments to the administration, forwarded some of those emails to the administration. And whenever there was a public meeting, there was a good turnout. We received a report from that. These meetings, these here are business meetings, and I don't want to ever discount, or unfortunately, I guess it's, I understand how folks would like to participate during this time, but we have, like I said, we have after council meetings, there have been 5 readings of this particular piece right here, of which we've made adjustments, substitute after substitute. working to try to get as much as we can from the developer who's willing to spend this money. So with that, I'm going to ask for a favorable recommendation. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, I'll second it. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Nay.
Against? Roll call,
Nay.
please.
Fusco.
Aye.
Kamer.
Aye.
Baylor.
Aye.
Mosley.
Nay.
The motion passes 3-1.
Thank you. Very good. We'll now move on.
Thank you.
Balance of the agenda. I'm going to request time on 11 through and including 18. I know the petitioner on 19 has requested that council take this issue up. This is authorizing conditional use to establish a type A daycare home at 2235 Urick Circle. We conducted this public hearing on 9/19/22, and understand there was concerns that was brought up from the community. The petitioner is now asking for a vote on this. Mr. McKittrick, do you have any comments?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I have looked to great detail into this area where they want to increase this. We have a very small footprint there, and in this end of this cul-de-sac, it really is going to be difficult to have any parking there if they have the ability to double the amount of children that they would have at this daycare. So because of looking at this and seeing where the fire hydrants are, where the proximity to the other driveways, there's really, by our ordinances, it would be impossible to park a car in the street there and not violate the ordinances. So I am against this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McKittrick. Any questions or comments? Ms. Mosley?
Thank you. I'm sure most of us received the many emails from the petitioner as well as the videos relating to the to and from her facility traffic-wise, and it just didn't seem as if there was an issue with traffic based off of the videos that she sent us, and just being in that neighborhood. My family lives a stone's throw away from there, and I just don't see where the congestion is coming from really now that she sent those videos. So I just don't see why we would disapprove it.
Any further questions or comments? Okay, hearing none. I know one of the, Mr. Malik?
Sure, just for clarification, were those videos shared with all of council?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
The, one of the criteria that we've got to consider while on conditional use zonings is the, one of the 8, I believe there is adequate infrastructure, meaning streets, et cetera, parking, on-street parking, off-street parking, especially on the conditional use pieces. And having driven by there myself and being aware of other, like oftentimes if there's going to be a problem with the conditional use piece, you know, go out and take a look at it, you know, beforehand, before a vote. And did drive past this one here. It's cul-de-sac. It's on the end of a cul-de-sac, and it's kind of tight. I think there's a fire hydrant there as well. So just didn't seem like that's a considerable increase, 6 to 12, I think, in terms of vehicles per day possibly. So with that, is there any other questions or comments? Yes, Ms. Mosley?
I know the petitioner was asking for a vote, but I would make a motion for time for those other council members to drive by there to get a look at what she's talking about. I would respectfully ask for us to take more time. Even though she asked for a vote, I would make a motion for time so the other council members and committee members can drive down that street.
I would respectfully go to the ward council representative and ask him what he would choose to do. You know, is it with regards to what the petitioner wants or what Ms. Mosley would like?
Mr. Chair, how long has this been, when did this initially come before council?
September.
This was, go
September.
ahead. Okay.
I'm sorry, but I kind of think that, you know, we're in December now. It's been some time past. I think other council members have had adequate time to actually go look if they wanted to do their due diligence. Thank you.
Thank you. Therefore, we are hearing that Mr. McKittrick would like a vote this evening based on the petitioner's request. Ms. Mosley, though, are you going to make a motion, or do you want us to make a motion?
My motion would be for time.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, not hearing a second. Is there a motion for an adverse report? Okay. So the motion is for an adverse report. Is there a second? I'll second it. All those in favor of an adverse report, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Nay.
Okay, very good. Roll call, please.
Fusco.
Aye.
Kamer. Baylor.
Aye.
Mosley.
Nay.
The motion passes 3-1.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to move on to the balance of the agenda. I believe we're going to take time, short of any questions or concerns. With that, we'll go into the new list of legislation. We have 2 items on our new list, I believe. First, accepting a dedication plat for the residents of Good Park and a vacation plat for a portion of Kildare Road and West Sunnyset View Drive.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is accepting the subdivision dedication and vacation plat for the residences at Good Park Development. This was passed by council as a conditional use back in July of 2020. So now the actual plat for dedication and the allotment plat is before you. So,
is there any questions or comments? Committee members? Is consent agenda okay?
consent will work.
Okay, good. I'll give.
Mr. Chair, this is our last meeting of the year. That would put us into next week for it to pass.
Are you aware of that?
Is that okay?
I think that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you for bringing that forward. Is there a recommendation for consent? Is there a second? I'll second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Very good, the ayes have it. The next item is ordinance approving the donation of city-owned land at 40 Kent Street to the Battered Women's Shelter and/or Family Promise of Summit County.
Yes, hi. Oh, are you?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Saw Brian up there. I thought he was going to. No, the city owns it's about a quarter-acre vacant lot on Kent, in between Arlington and Broad. The land surrounding it is, there's a Family Dollar to the west, and then there's other vacant land to the east and the north owned by EANDC, and the land bank is acquiring 2 other pieces. Those were the proposals that those 4 pieces are going to be put together, donated to Battered Women's Shelter, and they're going to construct a new facility geared towards men once they acquire all the property.
Very good.
And we would appreciate passage to not go to January if so be. If so be, if you approve, yeah.
All right, thank you. Questions or comments? Okay, very good. Is there a recommendation for suspension of the rules with a favorable report? I'll second it. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Against? Hearing none? We'll report out favorable this evening. With that, the Planning Committee of Akron City Council is adjourned.
Our next committee of the day is the Rules Committee. Those committee members are Freeman, Fusco, Amobian, Connor, and Malik.
Which one rules?
We'll give everyone a moment here. Okay,
Okay,
again-
I guess, all right, Sarah? Okay, we'll begin the Rules Committee of Akron City Council. Can we have a roll call, please?
Freeman. Fusco.
Aye.
Amobian.
Here.
Connor. Malik.
Aye.
We have all members present except for Councilman Freeman and Councilwoman Connor.
Thank you. We have one item that's up for, not a public hearing, but discussion. And that one item is, we have nothing on our regular agenda. This is under new legislation. Support of Ohio House Bill 456 would decriminalize the possession of fentanyl testing strips, expressing thanks to the Ohio House of Representatives for passing this life-saving legislation, encouraging the Ohio Senate to act upon this legislation before the end of 2022 session, offered by Councilwoman Mosley. Would you like to make comment?
Thank you, Chairman Fusco. Yes, this resolution is in support of decriminalizing fentanyl testing strips. It has already passed the Ohio House, and it is on its way to the Ohio Senate. This will allow individuals to test various drug forms to make sure there's no fentanyl in them. They are already being used here within our county. Police officers sort of turn a blind eye because they know it's a life-saving measure. There's also a letter that came in support of this resolution from our Health Commissioner, Donna Skota, and I've asked Sarah if she could read that in for the record. I'd appreciate it.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Solon.
Thank you, Acting Chair. I'd like to thank Councilwoman Mosley for bringing in this resolution. Although I think it is, well, I hope it is likely that the governor will ultimately sign this into law. I cannot say emphatically, loudly enough what a life-saving measure these fentanyl test strips are. If the sponsor would entertain my request to do so, I'd like to add my name to this.
Absolutely.
This is crucial. One of the things that we've learned in all of our lifetimes is that taking the view that something like this is somehow condoning drug use is not only foolish, it will actually cost lives to take such a view. So I emphatically support this. I thank you for doing this. And again, if you'll allow me to do so, I'd like to join you. Thank you.
Noted. Further questions or comments?
I did
Sing
want
it.
Sarah to, if she could, read Health Commissioner Skoda's letter into the record.
Oh, sure.
Summit County Public Health fully supports the removal of fentanyl drug testing strips from the offense of illegal use or possession of drug paraphernalia, as it is a proven strategy to prevent overdose and overdose-related deaths. In spite of a robust and comprehensive continuum of care, which includes treatment, supportive housing, and peer support services, overdose rates continue to rise in Summit County, Ohio. Over 200 lives were lost locally in 2020 to overdose, and again in 2021, with over 81% being linked to fentanyl and/or carfentanil. Summit County Public Health stepped in early on in the opioid epidemic to establish a county-wide web of naloxone distribution and become the hub for local harm reduction services. Recently found mixed into other supplies, such as cocaine or pressed counterfeit pills, there is no way without testing to be sure this substance is free of fentanyl. Summit County Public Health has distributed fentanyl test strips as a harm reduction strategy, most recently launching a mail order program for county residents. From the clients themselves, we have heard that using these strips to test their supply changes their behavior. They become empowered to make choices to protect themselves, such as using in smaller amounts, only using with friends nearby, and keeping naloxone on hand. Still, some fear being charged or arrested with possession due to the current status under Ohio state law as paraphernalia, and therefore refuse to use them. Removing the illegal status will open this up as an option for more members of our community, saving lives by preventing overdose death. Sincerely, Donna Skota, Health Commissioner, and this letter is attached to the legislation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Further questions or comments? Is there,
Yes, Chair.
Oh.
Sure, Ms. Mobian?
I too would like to thank Councilwoman Mosley for bringing this in. As a practitioner, every day that I work in the field, I know we are losing individuals to drug overdoses. So anytime we can provide something that will help us identify what individuals are using so they can be treated appropriately is a good thing. So I certainly support this and thank Councilwoman Mosley for bringing it in. And I too would like to have my name added. Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? Is there a favorable recommendation with suspension of the rules?
So moved.
Is there a second? I'll second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Very good. The ayes have it. We'll report that out this evening.
Could we do a roll call on that? I'm not sure that I heard everyone.
Sure.
Thank you. Fusco?
Aye.
Amobian?
Aye.
Malik?
Aye.
Thank you. That passes 3-0.
Okay. Rules Committees, we're done. Thanks.
Our next committee of the day is the Public Service Committee. Those committee members are Mosley, Kamer, Holland, Lombardo, and McKittrick. We'll give everyone just a moment here. We do have all committee members present whenever you're ready, Madam Chair.
All right. If I could call public service to order, if I could get approval of our previous meeting minutes.
Motion moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. We have two pieces coming before us. The first one is an ordinance amending ordinance O-10-2022, the 2022 number or bid ordinance to increase the amount authorized to spend with a vendor and declaring an emergency. Mr. Leto?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of committee. Yes, this no bid ordinance is going to be added through service. Basically, this is for rental equipment that is a necessary addition to the backlog of trucks and equipment that we have ordered and we have not received. So this will allow us not only to purchase or rent equipment in the meantime, purchase parts for these trucks, but also it's for our anti-icing chemical, which is necessary. We do have a contract obligation with our current vendor, and if it cannot be met by them, this gives us the option to go somewhere else. So these are basically placeholders in the budget to allow us to utilize these if necessary. If everything goes according to plan, we won't need to use these funds, but this will allow us to go and purchase these rent equipment and buy this necessary chemical.
Okay. Any questions from committee members? Any questions from council members? What's your pleasure?
Could we suspend the rules with the timing, please?
I'll make that motion to suspend the rules with the favorable report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Next is the ordinance authorizing the purchasing agent to enter into an agreement or agreements without the formality of advertising for bids with Bob Summerall Tire, Precision, Pneumonic, and Waterloo Transmission for the maintenance and replacement of the city's fleet of motor vehicles and equipment, authorizing payment therefor, and declaring an emergency. Mr. Leto?
This basically is the same thing. So with the tire supplier, we have ordered 7 new Packers and we still haven't received them. So we buy recap tires from this tire manufacturer to go on our trucks, and this is to allow us to keep these Packers in service till we get the new Packers. Precision Pneumatic, that's a lot of our plow trucks that we've ordered 25. They still haven't arrived. This is for new hydraulic cylinders, parts, supplies that needed to keep these older trucks through this winter coming up. There again, we won't utilize these funds unless those items break, and unfortunately, they will break. And then the last vendor on their Wazoo transmission, it's just an increased number of transmissions that will be needed services because obviously the delay in those trucks that haven't come in. So these are placeholders that we will be able to utilize in the case of an emergency.
Okay. Any questions from committee members? Mr. Lombardo?
Thank you. Mr. Lovell, in the past, when we get new equipment, then the older equipment, is it possible to, I'm sure we've offered them for sale to maybe a smaller community to kind of recoup this money?
We always put them up for auction. If you've been out and seen our fleet, a lot of times it's not a viable option to somebody else to use it. We get the useful life out of them, but we put them up for auction, and other communities have bought them. Sometimes when and not so much in trucks, but we've put things on govdeals.com. We did that at sewer, and we were able to generate a little bit of our revenue back on basically one of the bigger items we sold, it's probably been 5 or 6 years ago, is the bucket machines. We used to clean sewers manually, and our laborers would get in there and they would bucket out before the vacs, and these trucks were sitting around for years, and we put them on GovDeals, and somebody bought them. So absolutely, if we can get anything out of them, we will definitely sell them.
Right. I guess the plus side is it has new parts, you know.
Yes.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from council or committee members? Suspension of rules. Can I get a motion for suspension of rules?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Last piece, ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee, after publicly advertising for bids, to enter into a contract or contracts with the installation of 2 previously purchased GBT screw pumps at the water reclamation facility and declaring an emergency. Mr. Ludlow?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of committee. If you remember back in March, this council authorized us to buy these 2 new screw pumps. We've received them. What this legislation will allow us to do is bid the installation. So we will put this out to bid to have these 2 installed. To give you a little bit of history, these were put in 1978. The new ones are stainless steel. Tom Smith seems to think they'll last another 50 years once they're installed. So basically, this is just allows us to bid the installation.
Okay. Any questions from committee members? Any questions from council members? Seeing none, can I get a motion for suspension of rules?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. We have nothing else coming before us. We are adjourned.
Our next committee of the day is the Public Safety Committee. Those committee members are Kamer, Mosley, Lombardo, Malik, and McKittrick. We have all committee members present whenever you're ready, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'd like to call the public safety meeting to order. All members are present. We did host a meeting last week. Can I get approval of those minutes, please?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. All in favor of the minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. We did put one item we took time on, but we have a substitute offered as amendment. It's a legislation offered by Councilman McKittrick and Councilman Fusco. Amending and or supplementing Title 13, Chapter 135, Offenses Against Persons, Section 135.06, menacing of the Akron Codified Ordinances in order to impose a mandatory minimum jail sentence for incidences of menacing against public employees and utility workers and declaring an emergency. And like I said, I'll yield to Councilman McKittrick or Councilman Fusco if they would like to speak.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. The last time when this was read in, there were some of my colleagues that were wanting some additional verbiage put in and some change in the language. And if we look here, it's put in, I'm hoping everybody's read the information that's in there.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Fusco.
Yeah, the reason for the substitute is adding elected official. So that was brought up, I believe, last week, so hence the reason for the substitute.
Yep.
As for passage, I guess, this evening.
Yeah. No, thank you. I see that in here highlighted. So any questions from committee members? Any other council members? All right. Their wishes. Oh, Councilman Mallett. Oh, go ahead.
Motion for suspension of the rules with a favorable report.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, we'll present that this evening. Our second piece is offered by Kamer and Mosley. It's establishing the maximum hiring age for original appointments to the Akron Police Department at 45 years of age at the time of application and declaring an emergency. And I see we have our Deputy Mayor, Public Safety with us, Tucker. And we also have Chief of Staff, Gert Welms.
Well, good afternoon. And this measure, this ordinance is to try to raise that age limit so that we can attract people that won't necessarily be coming from Akron, but from other areas that already have some experience, but they want to come to the Akron area, and we don't want to exclude those people. And for some more details and more information, I'm going to defer to Lieutenant Miller.
Oh, thanks. Lieutenant, if you can speak at the podium if you want. It's up to you.
Good afternoon. Well, am I on? Good afternoon. I think voice can probably hear me. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you guys for your time. And as Deputy Mayor Tucker alluded to, Sergeant Murphy and I have identified, additional benefit to extending the age to 45 years old with that express purpose to attract and draw additional candidates. We think that will help additionally diversify our candidate pool. Obviously, military is a good, perfect example of that, but it also realigns us back to what we did some probably 10, 12 years ago where we had no maximum age anyway. So it puts us in line with a lot of the major police departments in the state, including Columbus and Toledo, and for those reasons, we make that recommendation.
Thank you, Lieutenant. I do got a question. I want to put you on the spot, see if you got this. I know this has come in several times over the last few years, and do you know the ages we have increased to get to 45? We're at, what, 43 now?
So it's 41 by appointment.
Okay.
So by the first day of the academy or appointment, you can't be older than 41 years old.
Okay, good, good. See, I'm just shy. All right, Councilman Malik.
I appreciate the work that my colleague is currently doing, though it's obviously his choice if he wants to make a career change. I just want to say that I support this, and I know that it was something we discussed within the Reimagining Public Safety discussions that we had in the fall of 2020, and something that I think will be a significant benefit. I know at least one individual who who wasn't able to join expressly because of this role, and is a great police officer in a different jurisdiction. And so I'm really glad to see this, and I know obviously we need all the help we can get with recruitment and with retention. So I'd like to add my name as well.
Absolutely. Please, if you don't mind, Sarah, adding Councilman to that. Councilman Lombardo next, right?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you. If I can ask, what's the minimum age? 21?
So 21. We've actually approved, HR has, that you can now take the exam at 20 and a half, so that we had some folks excluded from that opportunity also because they weren't old enough to sit for the test, even though the academy would start some 6 to 8 months later. In this case, so as long as they're 21 when selected or hired, that would also make them eligible.
And just some requirements, high school degree at least?
Absolutely.
Don't have to have a college degree?
No, sir.
Okay. Thank you. I didn't know.
That's it? Okay. Councilwoman Mosley.
Thank you. I'm excited to see this come in. I know it's one of the things that we talked about during Reimagining Public Safety, during personnel and culture. I look forward to the day when we get rid of the maximum age requirement. It was something that I spoke with the chief about, and he said in his previous life at another station, he hired someone who was 55. That would put me and Mr. Kamer right in line. So I look forward to that. I'm excited to see this, and I think we will draw in a lot more candidates, even here at home. So thank you.
We agree as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Howland.
And I'm going to chime in on that note. So when the Age Discrimination in Employment Act was passed back in 1978, the life expectancy of a United States citizen was considerably shorter and lower than it is today. Thank you, science, right? So at its passage, the Age Discrimination in Employment Act prohibited adverse action on account of age for a protected class that included anybody over the age of 40. Now, without naming names, I'm going to guess that there are a number of people in this room right now who thinks that 40 sounds like about 14, okay? Which is to say that where we are today, we all expect to live longer, healthier lives, and to work well beyond 40, well beyond 50. And there's a strong argument, too, based on data, that at 45, really, we're just getting started. So I think that this is a wonderful thing. The FAA actually has over time changed its qualifications in terms of age cutoffs for pilots, that we would increase the qualifying age for police officers makes abundant sense. I particularly like the angle that, like many people we all know, there's potential here for folks who are leaving other departments or the military and other places to come home, come back to Akron. Please come back. We need you. Thanks.
Absolutely, absolutely. Any other questions or comments? Councilman Malik?
Motion for suspension of the rules with a favorable report.
Second.
Thank you. I got a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? All right. Thank you for your hard work, guys. I appreciate it. Deputy Mayor, I appreciate you, and we'll present that this evening. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Our next committee of the day will be the Public Utilities and Green Committee, and that will begin at 2:45. Those committee members are Freeman, McKittrick, Connor, Mosley, and Holland. Again, that's Public Utilities and Green Committee, and it will begin at 2:45. Thank you.